The first ranking I've been able to find came in 1895 in the University of California yearbook, or the annual, yeah, they called it the yearbook, I think. And it's this wonderful chart, which you see these black and white photos of, it's all men, all these young guys doing calisthenics. You know, they're doing like barbell exercises, and they're wearing these great kind of gym outfits. And there's a chart with 3 columns, and in the left column, they show all the measurements of all the young men of this new university, and it's, you know, their neck measurements and their chest measurements and their thigh measurements. And then next to it, there's a column showing an average of 30,000 young men on the East Coast. These are the blue bloods. So it's Cornell, it's Amherst, and a third college, and they average all their measurements. And they're ahead of the California guys when it starts. But then after 3 years of doing these exercises and working out in the healthy air of the Bay Area, then there's a third column showing how they've surpassed the East Coast guys. And this is the first example that I've been able to find of value-added measurement in universities, which is now a hot topic. So it actually goes back quite a long way. And I won't rehearse the history over the next 100 years, but basically, it was really, there were a number of different kinds of rankings, but it was in 1983 that contemporary rankings really took off. That was the year that U.S. News and World Report started doing its college rankings, which began actually really as a very simple poll of college presidents. It was sort of a fairly typical news magazine parlor game. You know, let's ask a bunch of presidents who's the best. That's what they did. It quickly became very popular. The presidents got very angry about it. And, you know, there were lots of meetings. This is way before my time, you know, but there were angry meetings, and ultimately U.S. News said, well, we're not going to stop doing it, but we'll make it more sophisticated. So they started collecting a lot of data on things like graduation rates, entering scores of freshmen, class size, spending on research, a bunch of criteria. They kind of crunched it all together, and they came up with rankings. And these become hugely popular, hugely controversial, as you know, and really hugely imitated internationally. Many people are not aware of just how many countries now have rankings at a national level. It's more than 40. And some of them are places you might expect, you know, in Canada or in Italy, where journalists have done them. But also Peru now has college rankings. Kazakhstan has college rankings. You know, everybody's trying to figure out, you know, who's up and who's down within their own country. Now, coming back to the whole sort of global theme I've been talking about, there are now global college rankings. And these began about 8 years ago. The first year was, I'm going to double check the year, 2003, 7 years ago, at a Chinese university, Shanghai Jiao Tong University. And this was really part and parcel of China's efforts to, you know, to really revamp its university system, as I've said. And, you know, if you're going to try and make improvement on a large scale, I think their feeling was, you got to know where you're starting. You know, you need some kind of a benchmark. So they created these rankings, the pretty heavily science-oriented rankings, but with very transparent criteria. You can go to their website, you can see the whole thing. And the following year, a British publication, kind of like our Chronicle of Higher Education, it's called Times Higher Education. It used to have the word supplement on the end, and they changed the name. But they created their own global rankings, a very different methodology, very heavily based on surveys of universities and employers around the world, as well as some more hard data. And these two really became hugely popular, and they were popular among policymakers, but also, especially the British ranking, among students. They were a consumer ranking. And I'll just show you quickly how these look now. You can see the top 10 in the most recent ranking year. You can all go ahead and look for your alma maters. You know, you'll see that at this level, they're actually pretty similar. You know, I can't help notice that there's several British universities that somehow show up in the British rankings, the Imperial College London, that don't make it into the Shanghai rankings. But what I think is going to happen, I mean, my prediction is, because of everything I've been telling you about, that in 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, they're going to look quite different. Because we are beginning to see a shaking up of the old order.